Welcome to Parenting on Empty. This is podcast number 8.
Mariah!
Don't touch my stuff!
I want to touch your stuff.
You always break my stuff.
You always break my stuff.
You always break my stuff.
Mariah!
Michaela!
We're going to talk about bickering. And I think we'll probably first want to define what bickering is, because expressing your opinion, having an opinion, and communicating that is a good thing. It's okay.
Yeah, that's a good point, that bickering is not necessarily just vehemently disagreeing. I don't want to discourage that in my children. I want them to have opinions. I like that they have opinions. I want them to be thinking. I don't want them to just kind of go along with whatever anybody else says. But at the same time, I want them also to know how to communicate in a civil manner, even when they're upset, and even when they're not getting what they want, and even when they feel misunderstood and tired and frustrated.
Right, and that's a fine balance, I believe. And of course, you and I probably have, you and I have different tolerance levels for bickering.
Yes, we do.
I can handle a bit more volume and longevity, and you handle less. When you're animate about something and you're expressing it, it's going to come out in all kinds of different ways. There might be a fine line as what's just expressing yourself very passionately and what is just bickering.
You know, I think the bottom line is just what you can tolerate. And I have come to be at peace with the fact that I have a lower tolerance level than you do, and that's okay. And that I don't, like Michaela, our 5-year-old, I don't mind when she expresses herself by complaining that her sister's not playing with her and she won't give her what she wants. But I can't tolerate it if she delivers those same words in a whiny tone. And if she starts just yelling at her sister, or just starts yelling, period, because she's not getting what she wants. Because at that point, she may be expressing how she feels, and that may be giving vent to the emotion, but nothing positive is going to be the outcome. Her sister doesn't respond in any way. She just looks and laughs because she thinks it's funny that this little 5-year-old is all bent out of shape and red in the face and yelling. And I just don't find that funny. And it really raises my blood pressure level. I can't handle that for very long. And so I do intervene at that point. And I try not to just squelch entirely what's going on, because they both have a right to their feelings. And they both have a right to express those feelings. But I keep trying to focus them on their relationship, and also kind of a civil responsibility kind of thing. Nobody wants to hear the neighbors yelling.
Well, certainly there's that aspect. Yes, if you're in a neighborhood and you have neighbors close by and there's a lot of yelling and screaming, that's not a good thing. For me, what I try to keep track of is the content of the bickering, because it can turn to some pretty hurtful language. And so even if the tone is intense and the volume's loud, there's a lot of yelling, that can be sometimes innocuous because they're just expressing emotions and they're just angry about something. But when it turns into maybe some vindictive type language and some cruel language, I think that's certainly a good time to intervene and to say, hey, remember, it's okay to express your emotions, but it's not okay to insult, to degrade another person. Mm-hmm. You still want to treat somebody the way you would want to be treated. And when you say hurtful, damaging words, you're doing more damage than you most likely intended.
Yeah, and even though you say, I'm sorry, those words are always there. They're remembered for forever. And that's a good point. I think probably content is more important than volume. But I still think it's perfectly legitimate as a parent to recognize what your tolerance level is. Because if mom is having a breakdown, that's never a good thing for the kids either. So the fact that I can't take it when they're loud for an extended period of time, just trying to work out their differences, I think that's perfectly fine to intervene and say, you know what, you two need to find a way to work this out in a gentle and nice way. Mariah, if Michaela has an opinion, you need to listen to it. If you don't want to go along with what she's saying, then express that. And don't keep kind of taunting her and tormenting her to get her to this point. Because it's a bad character trait in the older child, that she enjoys watching the younger one just kind of flail powerlessly. And so she just screams.
Right.
Because she doesn't quite have, she's articulate, but she's not articulate enough, nor an abstract thinker enough to be able to figure out what Mariah's doing and confront it.
Right.
So she's just frustrated.
Yeah. You don't bicker in every situation. And so when the children are at school, there's times it's just not appropriate. It's not appropriate to bicker. Even though you're in the household and you're in the privacy of your own home, there's still things that are appropriate and inappropriate. And it's showing common courtesy to say, well, mom's got a headache, dad's got a headache. And so to exercise that common courtesy to say, at this time, it's not appropriate. It might not necessarily be bad that we have opinions and we have strong feelings about it, but right now, just to show compassion and caring about everybody in the household, I'm going to suspend my actions for the moment.
And sometimes I think it's not just a matter of being compassionate to other people because they don't like it, but it's a matter of self-control that they will need later in life. They need it now too, but it's not quite as critical. A matter of self-control and a matter of just looking at the relationship and asking yourself, does this build my relationship with this other person or does it tear it down? And I feel like we're trying to build a strong relationship between the siblings. Anytime that I intervene in their relationship and kind of try to teach them something, I'm trying to teach them how to love each other and what love really means. That love is sacrificial. That love thinks of the other person. That when you do something, you ask yourself, how would I feel if this was being done to me? And if I wouldn't feel very good about it, then why am I doing it to someone else?
Right.
And asking, especially with Michaela, the younger one, because she still doesn't always think ahead very far, I'll ask her, do you like to play with someone when they behave this way? And she says, no, why not? And there's just this little discussion about, well, it's just not very fun. Yeah. So do you think your sister wants to play with you when you behave this way? And if she doesn't want to play with you, you have to play by yourself. Is that really what you want? So kind of appealing to self-interest.
Yeah.
But also appealing to, do you want to maintain this relationship? Do you want to build on something? Or do you just want to be alone?
Yeah, and that's a good point, because bickering in and of itself does not have a goal in mind. It doesn't have a goal of coming to a resolution. There's just two people with really strong opinions, and they're just going to clash.
And strong feelings.
And so they aren't going to work out some kind of compromise. When you enter into a bickering session, compromise is the last thing you're thinking of. It's getting your opinion across and making sure your opinion is louder than the other person. And so it's more the goal is conquering. If I'm louder and have more intensity, I can conquer you with the volume and intensity of my bickering as opposed to you conquering me. So it's really not entered into to work towards a compromise or an understanding or some kind of an agreement.
No. So about the only goal that is reached is you've expressed yourself, and sometimes that makes you feel better.
Sure.
But the other goal that I don't think anybody ever sets out to achieve that is reached as frequently, it escalates into something that you never intended.
Right.
And it can escalate into physical violence of some sort, either pushing or shoving or tripping or hitting.
Right. Or as we stated earlier, saying things that can be very hurtful and
Yeah.
that can last for
Verbal
forever.
abuse.
We all have things that people said to us that we'll probably never forget.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, those are pretty dangerous words, and especially when it's said with all that emotion and the yelling and the screaming that goes along with it. So I think if you have to step in as a parent, it's that point where, okay, it's okay to express your emotions. It's okay to have those strong feelings, but now let's back off and let's see if we can do some problem solving. If you've got an issue that you need to deal with and the other person has the issue, let's see if we can come to some kind of an agreement, or at least cool off for a moment and come back and enter into this as a conversation.
My problem with this intervention thing, a lot of parents I know think you just kind of let the kids loose in the room and you let them figure out a way to resolve their issues. And I think there's something to be said for that, because kids have to learn how to relate, how to make their own solutions. But the problem is, if you haven't already established a really good foundation for problem solving, for how to do interpersonal relationship, they just end up might takes all. I mean, the might is right. So whoever's strongest, whoever's the most dominant personality rules, and everybody else is either whipped into subservience or they just find a devious way to go behind that person's back and get them later.
Right.
And I don't endorse any of those kinds of things. I've talked with all kinds of people who have talked about their relationships with their siblings, and all the ones who it was just a free for all, do whatever you want and work out your problems. It didn't turn out well. And their relationships, some of them are strong, but they're still very hurt by things that were done to them in the past.
Right.
And while I don't think that I can save my kids from ever remembering something that their sibling said or did that was hurtful, I think that we can do our best to protect that relationship and remind them on a day-to-day basis how precious it is. And my problem in this whole intervening thing is that I think everything can be solved by talking. And especially with kids, that's just not true. Because a lot of times their issues, they're not rational issues. It's just they're feeling emotional and they don't know what to do with their emotions. And so they just take it out on the other person. And it's helpful for me to remember, perhaps me intervening and talking them through the issue could really just make things worse. And that maybe the best thing is just to say, and you mentioned this, how about we take a break from each other?
Right.
You both go to your rooms, just sit in your rooms, do some quiet play by yourself for a little while. And then in about 20 minutes, I want you to get back together and you need to say something to one another, whether it's, I'm sorry, or could we play now? Or I'm willing to do it your way for 10 minutes if we can do my way for 10 minutes. But giving them some time and some space to calm down and then come back and do a little bit of talk that is either guided by me or an adult, or that is their own. Because usually once they've calmed down, they know the right thing to do. They know what they should go and do.
Exactly right. That's a good point. I noticed you said that's guided either by you or an adult. So it's an interesting what category you might want to put yourself into, but we can talk about that later. But I think we sometimes do sell kids short. And maybe I do that too, sell my kids short, that they can learn problem solving skills. And sometimes we think, well, they're just kids. Kids are going to be kids. And that's probably the most common phrase we use to sell kids short. And that's not true. They can learn to communicate in a very constructive way. And I don't think it takes some great teacher on interpersonal communications to teach kids how to have a civil conversation, how to have a constructive argument. And it doesn't have to be complicated, but it just can be some simple, basic guidelines. A great place to start would be to avoid using absolutes in your conversation. Things like, you never let me play with your toys. You always touch my stuff and you never bring stuff back. Because it's just self-defeating. There's no way another person can defend against that. There's no way they can represent themselves.
And just deal with the problem that you're going through right then and right there. So if it was a conflict over who gets to play with what toy, then I want to play with this toy now. You're not letting me. That's an honest confrontation.
Yeah. And that's
but you
more...
never let me play with the toys. That's not.
Right.
That's a red herring. And it's a personal attack. One is just communicating, this is how I feel and this is what I think and I don't like it. The other is, you're a bad person because you do this.
Right.
And I do feel that even a 5-year-old knows instinctively how to manipulate and how to try to one-up the other person and be the more powerful in any given situation.
Yeah, I think they may not know the term
No.
for using absolutes or speaking with honesty, but they know the difference.
They do. And so while you wouldn't necessarily use this kind of language, you would talk to them about what they just said. And I have actually worked with Michaela and said, is that really true? Does Mariah do this every single time? I remember yesterday that she was doing something really nice. Do you remember that? And then I'll give her the specific thing. And she, yeah. So is Mariah always like this? No. So is that an honest thing to say? No. Do we need to tell the truth? Yes. So just kind of very step by step and simply and black and white, because she's still very black and white, showing her that what she just said, while we don't typically call those lies, it is a lie. When you give this comprehensive, you are this way all the time, it's just not true.
Exactly.
Ever.
Right.
And that's a comprehensive absolute.
Oh, okay. Now we're using that highfalutin language that nobody understands.
Yeah.
And again, it can be just as simple as you stated. Just give examples. This, what you just said, you never let me play with these dolls. You never let me go with you outside to play on the swing. Yeah, just give examples. Those statements aren't true. And they'll know that. They know that what they're saying is not true when they stop to think about it. And then saying, what's an honest way to say what you just said?
So that's a first guideline. A second one might be just addressing tone. That a lot of times it's what we say, and other times it's how we say it. And again, even our 5-year-old understands tone, and she responds to tone. And helping them, we just do role plays sometimes. And I'll give them 4 chances to say something in a way that's appropriate. And they'll try different tones.
Yes.
Because they know which one is appropriate and which one is not.
Right.
Which one is going to make the other person kind of respond in an angry sort of way, which one sounds repentant, which one sounds conciliatory, which one sounds confrontive. You can say, I love you, and make it sound like it's an attack.
Exactly. And that's when we're talking about tone, that's where you may need to have a little time out with the person before they enter into this conversation, because tone is difficult to control when you're excessively angry, when you're overwrought. Yeah. So, and to be fair with the kids, if they're feeling that, sure, let's just take some time out, and when cooler heads prevail, let's talk about how we're saying things. Yeah.
And I think it's sometimes legitimate just to say, you know what, just you guys go away, and you don't ever have to revisit it because they were just being grumpy. You don't have to talk about it. Just go away, read a book, and then when you bring them back, let's play a game together. Find some positive way to get them interrelating. And sometimes I don't think you have to ever revisit what just happened.
Right.
Because it was just, they've been together too long. It was a rainy morning. They didn't like breakfast. Who knows? They got up on the wrong side of the bed. Sometimes, and this is a failure that I am guilty of, sometimes you just over-parent. I over-parent. And I want to address every single issue, every single time it comes up. And I need to sometimes just let them go and recognize it really wasn't an issue. They just need a little time apart, and then let's bring them back together doing something positive.
Yeah.
And maybe even individually. Sometimes I just individually will go and talk with them, not about the problem, but they just need a cool head to calm them down. So
Right.
I'll go in and chat about something that has absolutely nothing to do with what they were bickering about. And sometimes we'll ask them, tell me 3 things that you're really excited about, or things you're thankful for, or what makes you glad.
Yeah, and along those lines, it's interesting that bickering just naturally happens. Mm-hmm. And in that natural process, saying nasty things about the other person just naturally seems to come out. You notice that saying positive and affirming things about each other just doesn't naturally happen. There just isn't an outbreak of, you are one of the kindest people I know. I am so thankful to have you as a sister. I'm so thankful to have you as a brother. You just never hear those kind of outbursts where, that's a lot of positive remarks that are coming out of your mouth for no reason at all.
For no good reason.
That's just crazy. And so I think as a parent, that's a good thing to be aware of, that it's not going to happen naturally. So maybe have some scheduled time where you say, let's just talk about that, or sit around at the dinner table. And we've done that before. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the great positive characteristics about one another.
And I think another guideline is to model appropriate civil confrontation. And we did get a compliment from Mariah the other day. I didn't tell you this yet, but she was talking about some inappropriate confrontation that she had seen. And she said, you and Dad have a great relationship. You guys never do that. When you disagree, you just talk it out. And I was really impressed that, first of all, she's noticed that she's paying attention. And second of all, that she makes that connection. That what we're trying to do when we work with her and her bickering with her sibling, and I'm very overt about this, I'll tell her, when you are grown up and you have relationships with possibly a husband or possibly a best friend, a roommate if you're in college, or if you move out of the house and you're living with some other people, that you're going to have to find a way to work through issues that really bug you.
Right.
And you want to do it in such a way that it builds the relationship, doesn't break it. In such a way that it builds a bridge instead of a wall. In such a way that you don't have to go back and repent for all the horrible things that you said and did when you were upset. And she has watched, and she knows that I'm very passionate and that I can erupt, but she has watched that I try to control that, and that I try to select my words carefully, and she knows your weaknesses as well. And she has watched how you make every attempt to talk in a civil way, to listen, to hear what I'm really saying. And then we respond back and forth. And sometimes our disagreements are vehement, and we have to just sit there and listen to what the other person's saying and then give our response. And we keep going until we finally find a way to resolve it where we both are okay with the resolution.
That's the biggest thing, I think. That's the biggest issue. As parents, if you're not modeling that kind of communication, if you as parents find yourself bickering, well then, sure, the kids are going to do the same thing you're doing. And why not? Why not? That's what they see. So the old adage, don't do what I do what I say, just is pointless.
Yeah.